So can a man who has in the past managed to offend everyone, consistent I suppose, from Barack Obama to Hillary Clinton to the president of Turkey, really get on in a top job that requires a sensitive diplomatic touch? Well, we're joined now by the Spectator journalist Harry Mount. He's written a book called The Wit and Wisdom of Boris Johnson. Can he?
I think he can, and you can see it in that clip there. He's already trying to be serious. And in today's Telegraph, he's stopped doing his column. He's paid back a £500,000 advance for his biography of Shakespeare. And so he's making this big effort to become serious.
Right. But as you say, he's trying to become serious. It's going to be really hard work for him. It isn't his natural domain. You've sort of conceded that, haven't you? How long is it going to be before all of that falls apart?
Well, there are two forces in Boris's mind. The one is to amuse. When you talk to him, you could see him, he could seize the joke and he seizes it out of midair. He's longing to amuse. The other force is to be incredibly ambitious. When he was a little boy, he was asked what he wanted to be, and he said, world king. Now, this is his step to becoming world king.
Right, but is that the right person then, Nicholas Soames, to be on the diplomatic stage when we've had an attempted coup in Turkey?
I've had my differences with Boris over the referendum campaign, but I happen to agree with you entirely. I think he will be a really very good foreign secretary, and for this reason particularly, because he is a very brilliantly clever man. Secondly, we need people who can get on with people in politics. You know, he's a very affable figure, Boris. And we need people who, we're going to open a whole new world for ourselves.
Sure.
And we need people like that who are recognisable, who are understandable and comprehensible. And I make a forecast to you that he will be an outstanding foreign secretary.
Right, well, let me put you, what did you mean then when you said Mr Johnson was seriously adrift in the argument when he accused Barack Obama of blatant and exorbitant hypocrisy for telling British voters they must remain in the EU? And he also questioned his part Kenyan ancestry in that, adding that he was totally wrong on almost everything. This is you about Boris Johnson.
Well, this was me about Boris Johnson during a referendum campaign in which he said something very stupid about President Obama. He said some very stupid things about my grandfather.
So how's he going to get on with world leaders? You said he was an ocean-going
You've
clot.
just made the point. Look, he's now become foreign secretary.
Right. What, so he's going to have a personality change?
He is like a Ponticum rhododendron. He's reverted to type. And he will now be bringing all those many gifts. Look, I don't say this because I did have a big fight with him during the thing, but he will be an outstanding foreign secretary.
Is it all right, Lisa Nandy, to say stupid and offensive things about our allies? And remember the comparison he made with EU institutions, that actually they were sort of carrying on the expansionism of Adolf Hitler. Can people get over that?
I think Boris has gone a long way in British politics because he pokes fun and he makes jokes, some of which are deeply offensive. The part Kenyan ancestry is actually, in my view, bordering on racism and is absolutely disgraceful from any politician. But the thing that I'm more concerned about, actually, is not whether he's offended lots of people, he clearly has, but whether he's capable of telling the truth. And to be honest, having listened to what he said during the referendum campaign, riding around on that bus with a figure that he knew was a lie on the side of it, he's written over decades about the European Union, things that he must know, if he is brilliantly clever, are just palpably not true.
Right.
If we have a foreign secretary who's a bit of a buffoon, that's one thing. But if we have a foreign secretary who is fundamentally dishonest, then this country is in real trouble.
Right. What about those figures and claims that were made that were actually then lots of people, including Boris Johnson, distanced themselves from it? Are we operating in post-truth political world?
I don't think so. I think the thing about Boris is that for 20 years he was an extremely successful journalist and columnist. And as a journalist and columnist, you're there to attract readers. And so he entertains a lot of those things that were supposed
But that's
gaffes.
not the point Lisa's making. We're talking about
No,
the truth
I'm
with
leading on
facts.
to it.
Yeah.
That were supposed gaffes were in fact ways to entertain readers. He's now got to make the transition, as Nick said, to becoming a serious foreign secretary. And he can leave that journalism behind. There will be people who are offended, and I quite agree that comment about Barack Obama, I thought was very uncharacteristic of Boris. He doesn't have malice. That was entirely wrong.
But will he be truthful about what he says? If you were talking about the claims that were made about Turkish people coming to the EU, they were all joining, 75 million of them will be joining now. That was the implication. And £350 million a week is sent to Brussels, and that amount of money would be spent on the NHS.
Yes, yeah.
Are those true?
I think the Brexit campaign was quite like the build-up to a general election when people sex up what's going to happen. They give manifestos that don't then necessarily take place. I think it wasn't just him that did that and brought up that figure of 350 million. It was the figure put out by the Brexit
But he's
campaign.
the Foreign Secretary.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think, anyway, we will see, but I think we are going through transition, Boris, you've just seen in that clip. And you will say goodbye. He will still go on being amusing. He can't help but be amusing, but you'll say goodbye to the supposed gaffes.
How will the Russians greet him? He described Putin as Dobby the house elf. For those who haven't seen Harry Potter, which I have,
Joe,
talking about a character, and a ruthless and manipulative tyrant.
But Joe, look, you can produce endless examples.
Oh, I can. We could do a whole programme on it, yes.
Things we've all said.
But
in
these
our
are
lives.
recent things.
No, you can produce endless of it. But business is business. He is now the Foreign Secretary. He will behave like a Foreign Secretary, and he will bring charisma and, I think, excitement. And more than anything else, Britain needs to have a recognisable figure as Foreign Secretary in terms of our international
Well, not
relations.
if that recognisable figure is a disaster.
No, it won't be a disaster. You don't know you'll be a disaster.
No, but
You
Nicholas,
don't.
my point back to you is that you seem to be arguing that he'll be brilliant on the basis of absolutely no evidence. All of the evidence points to the contrary. And I hope, for Britain's sake, that he does get serious, discover the truth for the first time in his life and stop needlessly offending people who are our key allies.
Nobody's denying Boris's abilities. He is very clever, brilliant man.
Well, let's hope
and
he
I
uses
think
them
he,
for
well,
the
let's hope
benefit
he
of the
will be.
country.
But I make this forecast to you that he will be a brilliant Foreign Secretary.
We'll get you back on.
I'd love it.
Both of you
And keep the
together.
mug
We'll do
next
that.
time.
And you won't keep the mug next time. Harry Mount, thank you very much.